As I said earlier, we are going to have another meeting on March 1st in room 101, which is where we've had the other two meetings, beginning at 3 o'clock and going to 4:40 until the House comes into session, which is usually about 4:15. I did want to say the committee is always accepting written testimony. Please send it in. If you are at home looking for an email address, you can send it to the committee's clerk, who is Mike Hogan. His email address is mhogan@rilegislature.gov. And in that vein, we do have written testimony submitted by Michael Wood, who is the town manager of the town of Burrillville. He's sent a very comprehensive 4-page letter. Burrillville Council President Pacheco, would you, it's a long letter, we don't need to read the whole thing, but would you like to summarize it?
Yeah, I could go through this, no problem.
Okay.
A couple of things I wanted to mention. The siting board, this power plant right now, goes against the Burrillville Comprehensive Plan, goes against the Burrillville Zoning Board, has, with the information they were given, come out against it, and so is the Burrillville Planning Commission. So we have three, it goes, to echo Mr. Daniels, it goes against everything the town of Burrillville and the people of that town want the town to be, yet we're still talking about it. The second thing I wanted to mention is concerning those 33 cities and towns. I visited most of them, and I testified in front of almost every single city and town. The item that resonated the strongest with every single city and town that came out against the power plant was the lack of local control. That was the item that resonated. So the fact that we're sitting here to try and fix this, or improve it, let's say, is not just a Burrillville thing, it's, you know, for the benefit of all 39 cities and towns in the state of Rhode Island. So some of the things, the biggest things that I suppose myself and the town council and the management of the town are concerned about is, first, I'd like to see a project like this, when it's presented to the state, be presented to the state ready to go. I want to see a plan. I want to see, you know, where your water's coming from. Do you have enough gas? I mean, we don't know that right now, and we're still talking about this. We're going on 3 years. They have 55 structures on that property. We have plans for 2 of them. Any one of us would get arrested if we tried to do that in our city or town, build a condo project with no plan. On top of which, the applicant can't be happy with the money and the time that this is spent, so I'd like to see us try to formulate the legislation in such a way that the application is going to be complete when it's submitted. The second thing is, at least where the town of Burrillville is concerned, is we spent well over 7 figures on vetting this project. Now, somebody might say that it hasn't been all vetting of the project, but 90% of it or more has been vetting this project. The taxpayers of the town of Burrillville are taking it on the chin for a private business to come into the town and make money. There should be, in this legislation, if the application was complete when it was submitted, there should be, in this legislation, there should be money set aside either for the siting board to hire their own, you know, that the applicant and the community have agreed on to vet the project. It shouldn't cost the city or town the kind of money that it's costing us. This isn't fair. The second thing is if the project had been complete, or the application was complete when it's submitted, this thing would be built by now. It's just about running. So I'm not trying to, Lord knows, I'm all for jobs. So we're not trying to hurt labor in any way, shape, or form. What we're trying to do is make it so that, you know, when a project is presented to the state, you know, Labor's building it in 6 months, not still talking about it 4 years after it's been, you know, announced. The other thing is that we're really concerned, we'd like to see the board expanded. I mean, this has been brought up a few times tonight. Those 3 members can't possibly read all the information that comes across. And we're talking tens of thousands of pages by now. It's been ridiculous. I've read most of it, believe it or not. So what we're looking for, what we'd like to see on that siting board is not necessarily members of the community, say, or a council member or something like that, but somebody from the community who could advocate for the community. Those 3 siting board members are very busy. I appreciate that. There's no way that they've read every bit of this. There's no way they know what the effect is going to be on the people of the town of Burrillville, or whatever town it is. So I think it's important that the board be made up and have an advocate for the local community, whether it's you know, council appointed or the manager of that town or the mayor of that town, but we should have an advocate on that board, and it really should be expanded beyond 3. And I agree with your abutters. The abutters should definitely have more of a say. They shouldn't have had to go through the expense they've had to go through. At least the abutters in Burrillville have, and there's quite a few of them that couldn't afford the expense. And then the other thing, to go back to the local control, right now we don't know if the siting board, for an example, has the authority to force the Burrillville wastewater treatment plant to accept the wastewater from the power plant. We've got to tighten that up. We've got to know. I mean, these things, it's a little too loosey-goosey. I mean, the way this is set up and the way this process has been, at least for the 3+ years that Burrillville's been dealing with it, is very cost inefficient. And that's really the summary of this letter from Mike Wood and the town of Burrillville. We really should insist that the applicant submit a full application. They should know where their water source is going to be. They should know if there's going to have enough fuel. They should know what the plan of the building is going to be. They should know those things. They should be able to submit at least a blueprint. And we haven't gotten that. Almost going on 3 years, we don't have a blueprint for this power plant. And that's absurd. So those are the important things. And, you know, I'm not talking about, you know, the people, whatever affected city or town having total say. I mean, that's insane, because, you know, there is better, you know, the good of the many outweigh the good of the few, the needs of the few. However, we do have to have some say, and it has to be vetted properly so that we feel comfortable in the process. We haven't. None of us have. That entire town, I can bring 16,000 people up here to tell you that.
Thank you, Council President Pacheco. So perhaps some language that the siting board is only authorized to accept a fulsome and complete application, something like that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense for the applicant.
Yes. Okay, thank you all very much. Again, thank you for taking your time, all of you. Yes, yes, sure.
So I know you didn't write this, but...
Just for the people, for the benefit, yeah.
I'm sorry, I know you did not write this, but one thing I wanted to clarify is you said that, and I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
You said Burrillville was footing the bill for all the costs associated with that. My understanding, reading something in the newspaper, and that could be wrong, and you could very well be right, is that there was $100,000 that's allocated
Correct.
right off the bat by the state.
That's right.
And then the rest of it was being paid by Invenergy.
No.
So wasn't,
The town is been paying. We've spent well over 7 figures.
but weren't they reimbursing you like
No.
a monthly amount?
No. We negotiated a tax treaty with Invenergy a couple of years ago, and that included upfront payments in lieu of impact fees. And those upfront payments are what we are using to,
Right.
so the town is paying.
Whether that,
We were going to use that money for a new DPW building that we're building.
whether that plant comes in or not, you're receiving that money and it's not going back to Invenergy?
Correct.
Okay. That was the first question I had. The second was just, and this one is, you didn't write, but the gentleman is suggesting that there's been no public input. I've attended most of these hearings.
I've attended all of them. There has been plenty of public input.
I've seen hundreds of people testify, so I'm not sure where he's coming from on that. And I think he's also recommended that perhaps a local person be not necessarily a voting member, but be able to be at the table.
Right, exactly, an advocate for that community.
Okay,
Right.
okay. So, and you concur with that?
I would agree with that, absolutely. If we expand the board and there's an advocate for the local community, I would have no problem with that.
Thank you, sir.